I was recently revisiting one of my favorite movies of all time, the original Wizard of Oz, and it got me thinking a lot about Judy Garland, her struggles during her life, especially with her weight. Now, Judy Garland is a name that is timeless, exactly like her beauty. Judy was born Frances Ethel Gum on June 10th, 1922, in Grand Rapids, Minnesota. Now, it was extremely common for actresses to change their names at the time, and I certainly think that Judy Garland has more of that star quality to it than Frances Ethel. Judy never really knew life outside of the spotlight. Her parents were vaudeville performers, and so she and her two sisters, Mary Jane and Dorothy, pretty much inherited the performance genes from their parents. Now, it's important to note here that their parents were not highly successful performers. This is going to be important as we continue on with Judy's story. Before Judy was Judy, she was a young Frances Ethel who had her first on-stage performance at just 2 years old. She soon started a group with her sisters that was called the Gum Sisters. When Judy was 4 years old, her parents moved the family to California, where the girls began studying acting and dance. Their mother, Ethel, was their manager, and it's safe to say that she blows some of these modern-day stage moms out of the water. She had those young girls booked and busy, playing gigs and also appearing in short films. The Gum Sisters had the opportunity to perform at the World's Fair in Chicago in 1934, and they actually rebranded during that time into the Garland Sisters. And this is when Frances Ethel officially took on the name of Judy Garland. While all the sisters were very talented, there was something that was special about Judy. And at age 13, she signed a solo deal with MGM Studios. This marked a turning point in her career and future success, but it also began the roller coaster and downward spiral of her health. This is not something new. Even today, we see actresses, models, celebrities under pressure to maintain a certain look. Judy's situation was a little different because she was actually given drugs first by someone who was supposed to be protecting her. Very often, a parent will place all of their expectations for their own life onto their children. And with that comes excessive pressure that the parent places on the child. And sometimes, especially in relationships between a mother and a daughter, there can also be some underlying resentment from the mother that the daughter is beautiful, that the daughter is successful. And so sometimes there is resentment that can turn into sabotage. I think that Judy's mother was living vicariously through her daughters, and particularly vicariously through Judy as she started to become more and more successful in the entertainment industry. According to biographer Gerald Clark, Garland's mother was actually the first person to provide pills to Judy, both for energy and for sleep, to her daughter, and this actually started before Judy got signed to MGM. This is when, Judy was maybe 9 years old, 10 years old, and her mother was giving her these pills to help her stay alert during performances and then rest when she needed to rest. So let that sink in. A mother was giving her 9-year-old daughter pills for performance. So soon enough, Judy became reliant on those drugs. And things in terms of Judy's health just continued to go downward from there. She appeared in her first feature film at age 16. It was a musical comedy about coaches called Pigskin Parade. Studio executives actually referred to young Judy as a fat little pig with pigtails and insisted that she only consume a diet of black coffee, cottage cheese, chicken soup, and cigarettes, along with her standing regimen of pills. Her diet was also monitored very closely. And even though Judy was not overweight, I was just looking at her in The Wizard of Oz, and to me, she seemed like a healthy weight. She had a height disadvantage. Judy was only 4 feet 11 inches, and there weren't any filters or technology at that time to kind of elongate her figure or use illusion. And so she could be underweight, which she was, and still appear out of proportion on screen. Judy told biographer Paul Donnelly, quote, "They had us working days and nights on end. They'd give us pills to keep us on our feet long after we were exhausted. Then they'd take us to the studio hospital and knock us out with sleeping pills. Then, after 4 hours, they'd wake us up and give us the pep pills again so we could work 72 hours in a row." At 17, Judy scored probably her greatest and most memorable role as Dorothy Gale in The Wizard of Oz. This is a story that we all know. It's a story that has been remade countless times. It's the story of a young girl from Kansas who only wants to get back home after discovering the mystical land of Oz. Even though Judy portrayed a sweet, loving, and gentle character in Dorothy, behind the scenes was anything but gentle for the young actress. Garland was a young, vibrant, healthy-looking teenager who was headed into early womanhood, but she was playing a girl who was younger. So to ensure Dorothy's wholesome young appearance wouldn't be questioned by the audience, the studio actually resorted to strapping Judy Garland's breasts down, and they used corsets to create a slim silhouette. And this is on top of the exhaustion that Judy was feeling from being on diet pills, being on what they called pep pills, and then taking sleeping pills, having very little food, having her food monitored. Very few actors would be able to perform at all like that. But the fact that Judy rendered such an incredible performance is really a testament to her acting skills. Judy's entire adulthood life would be plagued by drug abuse and yo-yo dieting. And in her later years, she referred to her mother as the Wicked Witch herself. This just goes to show you how deadly it can be when mothers compete with their daughters. Judy had no advocate when she was in those studios with the executives. Her mother was willing to do whatever it took to get her daughter to where she thought her daughter should be. And this is something that we still see. This is something that we have seen, let's talk about Britney Spears. Let's talk about the fact that, Britney was and probably is supporting her entire family, and her family was willing to do whatever it took in order to continue that machine. And in Judy Garland's situation, her mother had the additional desire of wanting to see her own personal dream vicariously manifested through her daughter. This is something that we really have to pay attention to as parents. We can't put our own dreams on our children, right? Our job is to keep our children safe. And Judy was not kept safe. And I do believe that her mother and her mother's unwillingness to be a true advocate for her daughter is ultimately what led to many of Judy's problems as an adult. I would love to hear your thoughts and your comments, and I will see you in the next video.